kick things off by taking a look at the day's headlines. Train drivers and other rail workers in South Korea walk off the job on an indefinite strike. They're demanding better pay and improved working conditions. Hearing directly from the people, President Moon Jae-in spends more than an hour and a half answering citizens' questions in a televised town hall meeting. We have the details. Plus, meeting at the WTO, South Korea and Japan failed to narrow their differences over Tokyo's trade curbs on Seoul. We'll tell you what the next steps might be. Our top story this morning, the Korean Railway Workers Union have gone on an indefinite strike as of 9 a.m. Korea time, just 1 hour ago. Their first indefinite strike in 3 years comes as KORAIL workers and management on Tuesday again failed to reach a compromise on wages and employee numbers. KORAIL has sent substitute workers to operate high-speed KTX and commuter trains, but disruptions are still expected, so bear that in mind if you have to travel. KTX bullet trains are expected to run at below 70% of usual levels, commuter trains 60%, and freight trains only 30%. During off-peak hours, subways in Seoul are expected to run at about 80% of usual levels. President Moon Jae-in held an unscripted town hall meeting with South Korean citizens on Tuesday night as he marked the start of the second half of his presidential term. He explained his thought process on some key issues, including South Korea's relations not only with North Korea, but also Japan. Park Hee-jun with the details.
President Moon Jae-in says the South Korean government will continue working hard until the very end if there can be an alternative to scrapping Seoul's military intel sharing pact with Japan, which is set to expire on Saturday. His remarks on the GSOMIA pact came on Tuesday evening during his live televised town hall meeting with 300 pre-selected Korean citizens. While blaming Japan for initiating the row, he acknowledged the importance of security cooperation between Seoul and Tokyo.
우리의 안보에서 한미 동맹이 핵심이지만 한미일 간의 안보 협력도 매우 중요합니다. 우리는 최대한 일본과도 안보상으로 협력하고자 합니다. 만약에 지소미아가 종료되는 한이 있더라도 우리는 일본과 안보상의 협력은 해 나갈 것입니다.
On North Korea, President Moon says efforts for a third North Korea-US summit are already in the works.
연내에 실무 협상을 거쳐서 정상회담을 하려는 그런 시도와 노력들이 지금 지고 있다고 그렇게 저는 생각을 합니다. 그리고 제3차 북미 정상회담이 열린다면 반드시 성과가 있을 것이라고 보고 그러면 남북 관계도 훨씬 더 여지가 생겨날 겁니다.
President Moon emphasized the need to make the most out of the dialogue phase on the Korean Peninsula. He also said domestic firms participating in the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex and Mount Kumgangsan tours can recover their damage once the two sides are past this uncomfortable stage. As for inter-Korean cooperation on railways and roads, he said a considerable amount of the groundwork has been completed, but further progress depends on denuclearization and easing sanctions on the regime. And according to the president, preparations are still happening behind the scenes. The town hall session came just after President Moon entered the second half of his 5-year presidency. Admitting there have been shortcomings in his policies, he promised that he will work harder to produce concrete achievements that can be felt by the people over the remainder of his time in office. Beginning with the town hall meeting, President Moon hopes to engage with the public more actively throughout the second half of his presidency. And having listened to their voices, he'll try to reflect them in his policies, working toward a more integrated nation. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, looking at issues on a more local level, much closer to people's livelihoods, the president also fielded a number of questions on economy-related issues, including South Korea's overheated real estate market and the shorter working hour system introduced under his administration. Our Kim Jae-hee has this report.
A slew of economy-related questions were on Korean people's minds during Tuesday evening's televised town hall meeting with President Moon Jae-in. On the issue of soaring housing prices in South Korea, the president insisted his administration has the ability to cope with the situation. He pledged that they wouldn't aim for a short-lived temporary fix, stressing that he wouldn't demand the construction of even more homes in a bid to lower prices.
저는 이게 부동산 문제는 우리 정부에서는 이렇게 자신 있다고 이렇게 좀 장담하고 싶습니다. 지금 현재의 방법으로 부동산 가격을 잡지 못한다면 보다 강력한 그런 여러 가지 이 방안들을 계속 강구해서라도 반드시 부동산 가격을 잡겠다는 말씀을 드리고.
The Moon administration has long tried to tackle rising housing prices, taking a multi-pronged approach to it, but so far they haven't been able to do much to ease the problem. Addressing his pledge to create more jobs, the president expressed remorse that he was not able to meet the public's expectations, especially when it came to creating enough quality jobs in South Korea.
최대한 이런 좋은 일자리를 많이 만들어서 우선은 일용직을 전부 이제 이 정규직으로 최대한 전환해서 비정규직을 줄여나가는 것이 큰 과제 중에 하나겠고요. 또 일용직이면 일용직의 상태에서도 여러 가지 어떤 노동권이나 노동에 관한 여러 가지 고용 안전망을 누릴 수 있도록 그 혜택을 늘려나가는 것도 또 필요한 일이라고 생각합니다.
While the president expressed content that the government-led shorter working hours system has improved workers' work-life balance, he said more needs to be done to ensure smaller firms can also smoothly implement the system without disrupting their business too much. On his administration's hefty minimum wage hikes over the past couple of years, President Moon said the country is on the right track, and he urged rival political parties to continue fine-tuning the system to ensure it benefits workers, small businesses, and society as a whole. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, US Defense Secretary Mark Esper is refusing to speculate on whether the US would consider reducing American troop numbers in South Korea after the US delegation walked out of this week's bilateral defense cost-sharing talks here in Seoul. In a briefing in Manila on Tuesday, he reiterated South Korea is a wealthy country that can and should contribute more. His remark is in stark contrast to last week when he insisted American troops will remain in South Korea at the current level. On North Korea, Esper said the allies are prepared to deter any threat and they're prepared to, quote, fight tonight, a slogan used by the allied forces. Seoul and Tokyo held their second round of talks at the WTO's HQ in Geneva on Tuesday in their latest attempt to resolve their trade row over Japan's export curbs on South Korea. However, the two sides failed to narrow their differences. This sharply raises the possibility of the establishment of an independent panel at the WTO to review the case. Lee Se-dol with the details.
South Korea and Japan held their second round of bilateral talks in Geneva on Tuesday. It was their latest attempt to resolve the trade row over Tokyo's ongoing export restrictions. The meeting between South Korea's chief negotiator Chung Hae-kwan and its Japanese counterpart Junichiro Kuroda was part of a dispute settlement process under the rules of the World Trade Organization. According to Chung, he will return to Seoul with the outcome of Tuesday's meeting and come up with the next course of action, but a third round of talks is unlikely. Watchers say with the two sides failing to find common ground after 2 rounds of talks, Seoul is likely to push for the next step in the WTO dispute settlement process. In September, Seoul filed a complaint to the World Trade Body, arguing Tokyo's export curbs on 3 high-tech materials to South Korea are inconsistent with Japan's obligations under various WTO agreements. If the two countries fail to narrow their differences and can't reach an agreement within 60 days of the complaint, they can request the WTO dispute settlement body to establish an independent review panel to make a final ruling one way or the other. Lee Se-dol, Arirang News.
Now to some good news. 2 South Korean nationals seized by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea on Monday have now been released and are safe. Seoul's foreign ministry said on Wednesday that they were freed at 12:40 a.m. Korea time. It added their release was possible due to close coordination between South Korea and its allies, especially the US and Saudi Arabia. Houthi rebels in Yemen had detained 3 boats in the Red Sea carrying 2 South Korean nationals and 14 others. They claimed the ships, which were traveling from Saudi Arabia to Somalia, violated their territorial waters. South Korea's new southern policy aims to strengthen ties with ASEAN nations in various different sectors, including trade, culture and science. For part 3 of our special 5-part series on the upcoming ASEAN summits taking place in Busan early next week, we're going to take a look at the significance of South Korea's ambitious policy. Yoon Jung-min has this report.
Unveiled by South Korean President Moon Jae-in in November 2017 after his trip to Southeast Asia, the new Southern policy envisions more cooperation between South Korea and ASEAN, from culture to the economy. The policy boils down to more exchanges among citizens, economic cooperation, and regional security. In other words, people, prosperity, and peace.
신남방 정책은 대한민국 국가 발전 전략의 핵심입니다. 아세안은 세계 어느 지역보다 성장이 빠르고 앞으로 성장 잠재력도 매우 큽니다. 우리는 아세안과 함께 아시아의 평화와 공동 번영의 미래를 열어야 합니다.
The ambitious plan began amid growing tensions between South Korea and China over the deployment of the U.S. THAAD missile defense system on the peninsula. Traditionally, the Korean peninsula has been affected politically and economically by global superpowers, which has made Seoul feel the need to diversify its foreign policy as a middle power.
Amid strategic competition between the US and China and increasing protectionist mood, the ASEAN prefers to build an inclusive and multilateral cooperation mechanism rather than taking sides between the 2 big powers.
Seoul has expanded its ties not only with individual ASEAN members through bilateral free trade agreements, but also with broader regional blocs, such as through the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Based on this driving force, the 2 sides have been fostering cooperation in other fields as well, including science and cybersecurity.
And ASEAN-Korea explored new business opportunities by strengthening platforms or mechanisms of cooperation in many areas, such as infrastructure, ICT, and startup, and financing, and so on.
For a sustainable relationship, experts say, both sides should build trust based on mutual respect and interests. They say that in the long run, the policy will see more tangible outcomes. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, preparations are well underway here in South Korea with just 5 days to go before the country hosts those major international events with ASEAN nations. Authorities are working round the clock to ensure tight security in Busan, as the southern port city will be hosting all of the ASEAN leaders plus President Moon Jae-in. Our Shin Se-min files this report from Busan.
Counting down the days until ASEAN leaders head to Busan for the 2019 ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit, the host city is busy making sure the summit's security is all good to go. The National Police Agency said it will mobilize all of its police force starting Saturday ahead of the 3 days of summit meetings from November 25th. And in the days leading up to the summit, some 700 police and security personnel are already on the ground in and around the summit venue. They are doing test runs to prepare for any possible terror threats, including drone strikes.
Our priority is the safety of the heads of state even when traveling. We also plan to ensure the safety of all events taking place in the BESCO area.
Busan is also considering an alternate no-driving day policy, where half of all affected vehicles would be banned from roads, depending on the last digit of the car's license plate, from the 25th until the 27th.
And the roads surrounding BESCO, the main venue for the summit, will also be heavily managed with local police monitoring traffic flow for airtight security while working to minimize inconvenience for the public.
Cargo trucks weighing over 1.5 tons will be strictly barred from the Haeundae area of Busan, where the venue is, and the Land Ministry has already boosted surveillance levels to level 3 out of 5 at 7 major airports across the country. And authorities advise travelers to be more vigilant and to get to the airport ahead of time, as security checks may take longer than usual. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Well, only one place to start our world news today, and that's with the ongoing impeachment hearings against US President Donald Trump taking place in Washington at the Congress there. 4 witnesses have been in the hot seat answering questions from representatives in what is the 3rd public hearing at the House of Representatives. Some more on this and other news from around the world. Let's turn to our Kim Dami. So Dami, walk us through what we've been hearing from these latest testimonies.
Right, Mark. Let's start with Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who described Trump's July 25 call as a shock and the worst fear. In the second week of public hearings on Tuesday, Vindman clarified that it was inappropriate for the president to demand a foreign government to investigate a U.S. citizen and political opponent.
I was also clear that if Ukraine pursued an investigation, it was also clear that if Ukraine pursued an investigation into the 2016 elections, the Bidens and Burisma, it would be interpreted as a partisan play.
The White House National Security Council's top Ukraine expert then added that Trump's request would undoubtedly result in Ukraine losing bipartisan support, undermining U.S. national security and advancing Russia's strategic objectives in the region. Vindman added that character attacks against public servants testifying in the impeachment inquiry were reprehensible, urging Americans to be better than personal attacks. Jennifer Williams, an aide to U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, further strengthened Vindman's testimony that Trump's July 25 call was unusual because it involved a discussion of what appeared to be a domestic political matter. Kurt Volker, former special envoy to Ukraine, made it clear that he didn't take any part in any effort to urge Ukraine to investigate Trump's political rival, Joe Biden. Unlike in previous hearings, President Trump said he watched the testimony this time, but still expressed anger and resentment.
All these people are talking about, they heard a conversation of another conversation that was had by the president. What's going on is a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to our nation.
The White House further added they've learned nothing new in Tuesday's illegitimate impeachment proceedings. Hong Kong's pro-democracy protesters trapped in a university are looking for escape routes out of the campus battlefield after more than 2 days of clashes with riot police at Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Groups of protesters escaped the site by rope and motorcycles on Tuesday. Many of the 100 protesters remaining in the university attempted to leave through the main gate, but failed as police shouted at them and flashed their torches. More than 1,000 people have been arrested over the past 24 hours, and some 235 injured were taken to hospital. Hong Kong's chief executive Carrie Lam promised on Tuesday that she has ordered Hong Kong police to handle the situation humanely.
South Korea's producer prices fell 0.6% on year in October. The Bank of Korea says its production price index came to 103.61, falling for the 4th month in a row. Compared to the previous month, producer prices were down 0.2%, mainly due to a fall in pork prices after an increase in supply and decrease in demand. Prices of power, gas, water and waste disposal stayed the same all month. TVs manufactured by Samsung Electronics have accounted for more than 30% of the global TV market for 2 straight quarters now. Market research firm IHS Markit reported Wednesday that by country, China actually overtook South Korea for the top spot for shipments, with over a third in the third quarter. However, due to their low retail price in comparison anyway, Chinese TVs only accounted for about half of Korean TVs in terms of sales. Samsung Electronics maintained its top position in the global market thanks to strong sales of its premium QLED TVs and ultra large screen TVs. Now, world-famous South Korean Go master Lee Se-dol has retired, ending a legendary career spanning 24 years. He's not only famous for his skill and dominance against regular human beings, but also for securing an astonishing victory against Google's artificial intelligence program AlphaGo back in 2016. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
South Korean Go master Lee Se-dol, the only human to have scored a win against the AI program AlphaGo, retired on Tuesday. He did not explain why he decided to end his 24-year career. The 36-year-old submitted his letter of retirement to the Korea Baduk Association, which oversees Go professionals in South Korea. Throughout his career, he won 18 global competitions and scored 32 victories in local events. He has reportedly earned around $8.4 million in prize money over the course of his glittering career. Lee garnered global attention in 2016 when he beat AlphaGo of Google's DeepMind Technologies, despite the fact that he was defeated by the AI system 4-1 in the famous 5 Series match-off.
Go is a game played between humans. I think it's more meaningful to compete against my peers, whether they be seniors or juniors.
He hinted he would retire in the near future after his game with his Chinese rival, Ke Jie, in March.
He said he was going to retire following his match with Ke Jie in March. He said he would do so late this year or early next year. I think he was looking for the right time.
Closing the chapter on his legendary career as a Go master, Lee Se-dol now prepares for the second chapter in his life. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Good morning. We had some freezing morning temperatures. In fact, Seoul and most parts of the country, including even Busan, saw the season's lowest temperatures so far this morning. We'll have to wait until tomorrow afternoon when mild westerly winds blew in, boosting the temperatures, so make sure to stay warm for one more day. Meanwhile, the air is getting drier with a dry weather advisory in place for parts of Gangwon-do province. So those of you in and near mountainous regions of Gangwon-do province will need to be extra careful as there is an increased risk of fires. So we do need winter gear to stay warm today. Daily highs will be similar to slightly higher than yesterday for upper regions, and air quality will be normal to good under a decent amount of sunshine. After the cold snap eases tomorrow afternoon, we'll see mild temperatures through Saturday. Then on Sunday, we are expecting nationwide showers. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave the news and weather for now on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV And our daily reminder that our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time in around an hour and a half from now. So until then, goodbye.
you.